Hey, welcome everyone to a special SGI show today. Got Sean Rice on today. He's really big in Iowa high school athletics, but he's also a former Missouri Valley Conference player. So we're going to do a combination today, Sean. We're going to do a combination of the Chad Harberts show and the Dr. Bowser Deep in the Valley show. A little bit of both. I don't know what I'm going to put on a label on it, but since you're in both areas, we're going to have some fun with it. So
Perfect.
Welcome, Sean.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm excited to be part of this. I was thinking, JD, was it maybe a year ago we were sitting in Josh's kitchen and you and Leonard were talking about the concept of this. And
Yep.
I tell you what, over a couple of cold beers, you guys had it wired pretty quickly on what you wanted to do and what you wanted to talk about. And watching its growth and the footprint that you guys have created is really great.
It's been fun. Hey, full disclosure, I was fortunate enough to marry Sean's sister. So he's my brother-in-law, but he's also a pretty gosh darn good basketball player and super involved in sports. We're going to cover a lot of topics today. Why don't we start with Sean, give us your background, kind of high school through Iowa, what you did in college, talk about your family. Why don't we start there?
Family moved here to the Cedar Rapids, Marion area between my freshman and sophomore year of high school. I went to Linn-Mar, was at Linn-Mar for 3 years, played for two different coaches there, Steve Kaler and then Nick Ament at Linn-Mar, and also was part of some pretty good football programs at Linn-Mar in the late 80s and early 90s as well, too. That was a lot of fun. A guy by the name of Greg Purnell, a lot of Iowa high school people recognize that name from football as well. And then ended up at UNI, playing college basketball at UNI for Eldon Miller, and people like Kevin Lehman and Kevin Boyle and the late Sam Skerich were my coaches up there. My wife and I settled here in the Cedar Rapids, Marion area and just celebrated our 30th anniversary last week. So pretty fired up about that. And I'm lucky enough to have 3 daughters, all heavily involved in sports at different times. Our youngest lives in Des Moines and is finishing nursing school at Grandview. And she did play at Grandview for a couple of years. A lot of people know Grandview because that was one of Nick Nurse's, also a former Panther, Nick Nurse's first coaching jobs at Grandview. I think it was his first head coaching job, if I read the resume correctly. Delaney, our middle daughter, was the volleyball player. So heck of an athlete. She exploded her high school season, her junior and senior year, with her athleticism and fell in love with volleyball and was lucky enough to play down at St. Louis U. Got caught up in the COVID, so got an extra year out of that. Played 5 years and still lives down in St. Louis. And she was a social worker down in St. Louis doing foster care and adoption services for a Catholic charities firm down there. Loves the city and really fell in love with St. Louis. And then Chloe is still involved in basketball. Chloe played 2 years at SLU also and 2 years at Bradley. So I got to jump back into the Missouri Valley Conference cheering for her and the Bradley Braves. That was fun. And then she was lucky enough to get a GA spot with Dawn Staley at South Carolina. Spent 3 years at South Carolina. 2 of them were a GA spot. Her third year was a full-time on staff doing a lot of different things. So I had great experience with Coach Staley and Coach Lisa Boyer out there, and still stays in touch with all of them very regularly. She had a cup of coffee, as they say, in Phoenix at Grand Canyon University. And I got a lot of learning experiences out there in the Mountain West Conference. And then now, here about, I think it was as of 3 weeks ago, she's officially a Loyola Rambler. The head coach at Loyola is Morgan Page, who's another high school all-star from Marion, basketball player, Wisconsin Badger. Bounced around in the coaching world and is now head coach at Loyola and hired Chloe to be an assistant. So a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's fun. You touched on the fact the girl's going through the Marion Indians, now Wolves.
Yep.
And Chloe's now paired up with a legendary Marion player, Morgan Page. And it's been a heck of a journey. But I am going to go back a little bit. You were on one of those legendary football teams in Iowa, high school. Yeah. And before we get into basketball, and I remember getting the Street and Smith All-American list in high school. They used to print them out, people. And
the big catalogs, right?
Big catalog. We still have one. You were the number 9 tight end in the United States and got recruited at a very high level because you were playing with Linn-Mar, with Driscoll and Mulhern and Malloy and all these D1 players. Talk about that experience.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. You look back on it and you go through these time periods in your life, and sometimes you don't realize how special it really is in the moment. We just thought, okay, we're pretty good and we're having some fun. And then you look back on it and realize that was a pretty unique deal. So for 2 years, lost one game in 2 years and a couple of state titles. And that coaching staff that they had there at Linn-Mar with Greg Purnell was a lot of fun. Talk about a fiery individual and a heck of a football coach. He knew exactly what he wanted to accomplish. And that was a different time as well, too, in the late 80s and early 90s. If I remember right, I think we won it in 89 and 90. The last one in the 80s and the first one in the 90s, if my math is right. And at that time, Linn-Mar High School was a different high school than it is today, based off of enrollment. So it was basically the same size as like a Marion today. I graduated with, I think, 250 kids. So much different landscape than what Linn-Mar looks like today. It was a lot of fun. And we had some characters on that team for that 2 or 3 year period. And we were pretty fortunate. Some of them I still stay in touch with. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a fun team to watch. A couple state titles.
Yeah.
As I remember back in the day, I thought, hey, maybe Sean's going to play football in Nebraska or Notre Dame or Wisconsin, and you chose basketball instead.
I still love college football in the fall. I probably love college football even at times more than college basketball. But it was one of those things I could never see myself over 300 pounds. And everybody I talked to was talking about moving me from tight end to the line, and that's totally fine. But I just couldn't see myself in that spot. And I love basketball, and it just was easier for me to play at that time.
And so talk a little bit about, we'll stay on high school before we jump back into your playing career. Talk about your involvement in sports with your daughters as a parent and a coach in Marion.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough and blessed to have 3 daughters. And by the time I got out of college, I was burnt out on playing basketball. I was not that type of guy that joined the lunchtime leagues or the Saturday tournaments or the Saturday morning deals. That wasn't really my deal. I was burned out and got away from it. And then all 3 of our girls got involved with sports at a very early age through the YMCAs and doing the club soccer and softball and basketball. And Chloe, who happened to be our oldest, fell in love with basketball and just naturally gravitated to helping coach at those young age groups in those young clubs. And then that evolved into her getting around a pretty solid group of young girls in that probably 5th, 6th, 7th kind of pre-junior high age range. And there was a lot of like-minded families and like-minded girls that wanted to continue to play. And we didn't know what the landscape was. We didn't know anything about club sports. We didn't know anything about club basketball at that time. And that's really when it started to explode and really, truly turned into a business. We weren't trying to make it a business by any means, but we just had a bunch of families that liked each other and a bunch of the girls liked each other and just started going to tournaments and so forth and had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, if you go back to how it's changed, right? When you were in high school, you got noticed to camp. Talk about that a little bit, how things changed.
Yeah, the way to get noticed in those situations is you had to leave and you had to go to these camps that were in certain areas and on certain dates and only in certain parts of the country. And let's go back 15, 20 years ago when our daughters started playing, we realized very quickly the whole landscape changed. There's tournaments every single weekend, and then there's these big viewing periods that these coaches can go to several different places across the country and watch these kids compete. And whether that was volleyball, whether that was basketball, that was a lot of fun to really see. And I go back and forth on it because the club sports, youth sports, high school sports landscape from a club standpoint truly has turned into a business. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And there is some downside to that. But for the families and the kids that enjoy it, number one, want to spend the time, number two, and know that they want to play beyond high school, it's really a good fit if you can get in with the right system and the right people.
I think that's really some great advice. So Chloe ended up winning the state title at Marion her senior year, and Delaney had a heck of an experience playing volleyball, a lot of club. I remember Delaney in 8th grade was on her way to 6'4", and she was, how can we put it politely? She couldn't chew gum and walk at the same time. Coordination.
It was so fun to watch because Danielle and I laughed when she was about, I would say 10 or 11 years old. She was all in on dance. And Danielle and I finally had to sit down. We went to Starbucks and got her a cup of hot chocolate late one night and had a heart-to-heart with her about, you know what, we all like dance, but I don't know if this is really something that's going to be long-term your gig, because you're going to be well over 6 foot tall. And at the time, the only thing we knew is she didn't love basketball. She only played basketball because her sister played. And what we talked about is, hey, let's try this volleyball thing, because Danielle was always a big volleyball fan and a really good volleyball player back in her day. And Delaney's like, okay, sounds good. And it was that simple. And then she started playing volleyball. And it was about her sophomore or junior year, everything flipped and the athleticism flipped. And all of a sudden she was very explosive, not just side to side, but she could jump, and she understood the game pretty quickly. And she had a great high school coach in Roxanne Paulson there at Marion, and bounced around at a few different clubs and had what I feel is the right level of play and exposure, was good enough to be on a program that won a national championship in club one summer. So that was a lot of fun as well too.
And then went on to St. Louis, had 1,000 kills, had a heck of a college career. I think it's really interesting for you to share that story. So let's dive into a little bit of basketball now. Let's kind of transition in the Missouri Valley. So you're out of high school, chosen not to play college football. You go to UNI to play for Eldon Miller. The very first year you join UNI is their first year in the Missouri Valley.
Yeah, I remember that. I got set up to have an interview. Somebody from the Gazette, I don't know exactly who it was, but somebody from the Cedar Rapids Gazette called me to interview me. And I had to go to the athletic director's office and do a phone interview over the phone. And these guys are asking me questions about how I feel about UNI joining the Missouri Valley. And at the time, I'm like, I really didn't even understand what was going on. It was the end of my senior year of high school. And I'm just trying to say, yeah, I think it's going to be great. Look forward to it. I knew it was going to be a step up, but I didn't really realize that all of the schools and the history and the tradition that were involved in the Valley until I got there. And the Valley also has changed, just like many conferences, right? My freshman year, we're playing at Tulsa. We're playing at Wichita State. We're playing at Creighton. So you start thinking about some of these schools that were in the Valley in that time period that I was there. It was a blast. And that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, my freshman year, I think Tulsa with Tubby Smith made the Elite Eight. Is that right? That was my very first conference game at Tulsa, playing the Tulsa Hurricane, and Tubby Smith was the coach. And they went on a run that year, and they actually made the Elite Eight that year.
Yeah, there was some incredible basketball. I remember that first year. Back then, the Missouri Valley was played in that old barn, the Keel Center.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
absolutely. Down in St. Louis, yeah.
Down in St. Louis.
Which does not exist anymore, by the way.
No, it does not. It was a hockey arena. If you walked in there, it smelled like beer the minute you came in. It was wonderful. By the way, when you were playing, I think, Illinois State freshman year, and I'm married to Tracy, and we go down there. Your sister almost got me in one memorable fight down there because you were playing, I think, Mike Vandegaard, who might be the most disliked player in Missouri Valley history for Illinois State.
And he was one of those guys that could score and defend. He was good.
He was good. But the fans didn't like him. And Tracy started mixing it up verbally with an Illinois State fan. Next thing you know, she got me in a fight with another fella Illinois State fan because she wanted her brother to win. That competitiveness stays in your family. I just thought that was great. So you were in the Missouri Valley. UNI comes in. It's a big step up.
Yeah.
Talk about your career playing for Eldon and in the Dome. Give us a little more detail.
Yeah, that's the other thing. A lot of people don't realize anymore that UNI actually played basketball in the Dome. There's a whole generation here that doesn't realize that we used to play basketball in the Dome. Yeah, it was a blast. Eldon was a high quality, high character guy. He could really get after us at any given time. And that group, so my freshman year, that group of guys that were seniors, they were still part of that NCAA run that they had a few years prior when they won the conference championship, and they beat Mizzou on that Maurice Newby shot at the end, knocked off Mizzou, and then had a really tight game against Minnesota. They had the Gophers down to the wire with Lynch and those guys with the Gophers. So the guys that were seniors when I was there were part of that group. It was really cool to be part of that and have them explain what that process was like, and then really be part of the Valley as well. We had a lot of fun, and that year, looking back on it, was actually really good knowing that we were brand new into the Valley, I still feel like we competed pretty well. I ended up getting an opportunity to play because I was set to redshirt. I ended up getting an opportunity to play because one of my good friends, who I think you also had on the show, Dr. Pace, essentially broke his ankle pretty early on in that season. And they all of a sudden suited me up and I was ready to go and playing by the time conference season started. Certainly missed the first few games. And we had a strong season. At the end of that season, I think we lost to Illinois State in the conference, maybe quarterfinals or semifinals, I can't remember. And then sophomore year was kind of up and down a lot. I broke my ankle that year. In between my freshman and sophomore year was one of the best times because we took a European trip and we spent time in Amsterdam and Finland and Scotland and Norway, I should say, and spent probably 2 weeks out there. And I was feeling really good, was feeling really strong. We had a great group of guys and I was playing a ton and then came back, and 2 weeks before practice started, that's when I broke my ankle. So I feel like I never got healthy that season. And I think that season was kind of up and down if I really look back on it. Junior year though, my junior year, that's when we had a squad. And that's the one that we got to the conference championship and lost to Southern Illinois.
Yeah.
We had other guys in addition to Randy Blocker was in that group. Cam Johnson was in that group, Brian Jones. And then my senior year, quite frankly, the recruiting changed a little bit. There were a couple of guys that we thought were coming that didn't show or didn't get there. And we just never quite put it together my senior year.
Yeah, your senior year was weird too, because right before the season started, the roof collapsed.
That's right.
And you were playing, I think you played a game where the Waterloo Blackhawks play.
Yeah, is that McElroy and Waterloo? And we were even playing some home games down here in Cedar Rapids.
You had to play in the five season center. Yeah. You came down and played Nebraska. You basically went on the road for the whole year. So that was a factor too.
Yep.
I'd
forgotten about that. Thanks for reminding me. Now I got an excuse. Yeah.
But play with some great players. I think Cam Johnson's the only Missouri Valley player to win the tournament captain on a losing squad.
Sounds right. I think I remember that year, I think.
Yeah, but that was a heck of a team. That was when Southern Illinois really took off with Lusk and Amaya. And I remember going to that game, everybody was really down on Rich Herron. And if he wouldn't have won, he may have been gone.
Yeah.
And then Southern Illinois, they just took off after that.
They did. That was a hell of a team. Southern Illinois, that time frame, Illinois State was really good for a long time. Towards the end of my career at UNI, obviously Tulsa were out of the conference, but I tell you what, Illinois State and Bradley had some good teams, but Southern Illinois, Missouri State too, obviously, but Southern Illinois and Illinois State seemed like they were the top two for a long time.
Yeah, I think Illinois State was probably back in the Kevin Stalling days.
Yes.
They were really good. So just who are some of the best players you played against in the Missouri Valley when you were there?
You just said the one that I had thought about this morning when I was putting some thoughts together for this was Ashraf Amaya.
Yeah.
Southern Illinois. The guy banged around in the NBA for a while as well, too. Physically big, strong guy. Probably the best physical player that I've ever played against at Southern Illinois. And you look at that team that they had with Lusk and those guys, and they had Carr was part of that squad, is right.
Yeah.
Another NBA with the.
He played in the NBA a long time.
Played for the Wolves for a long time. The Wolves up there. They had some incredible athletes. In fact, would have been my senior year. So Amaya might have been gone by then, but we were playing down at Southern Illinois. And I remember I got elbowed right in the middle of the face and I got stitches at halftime. So laying there on the cot at halftime, getting stitches by their team doctor did it and came back and played in the second half. And we did not win, but I was surprised to get back in the second half.
Yeah, they had some great teams. I think they might have Chris Lowry on those squads too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Is he up at Northwestern now coaching?
Yeah, he might be. He's been a college head coach for a long time. Was a great coach at Southern.
I think Coach Painter was down there on the staff for a while as well.
Might have been. Painter might have been on the staff then. But that was that Rich Herron team, and he really built that tradition. But yeah, I remember that game. Your dad's family is from Southern Illinois. We actually went down to that game. That was back in the days where people were smoking a lot. So that was a kind of a smoky arena. That was a pit. Was a pit. Nobody won down there. So what was your favorite place to play on the road in the Valley?
Wichita State. Wichita State. So you'll appreciate this because everybody's going to know this name, Darren DeVries,
Yep.
the Hoosiers coach right now. Darren DeVries coached at Drake for a long time, been in the business for a long time, was at Creighton, an assistant for Creighton for a long time. He was a freshman when I was a senior. And we're playing down at Wichita State. They got one of their loaded teams, and somehow we're like fighting and clawing and just kind of hanging around. So all of a sudden, ball goes out of bounds. We get a dead ball timeout, and we're down. We're down one. We get Darren DeVries into the lane, and he hits this backward ass runner with no time on the clock, and we win down at Wichita State. And at that time, Darren was, what is he, probably 6'2" or something like that. And he might have been 135 pounds as a freshman. He was a little dude, but he was gritty and he could play. That was a lot of fun. I'll always remember that game.
Yeah, right out of Appleton, Parkersburg.
Exactly.
Just real scrappy guys. You played with a lot of great Iowa players. Haim.
Yeah.
You and I had a lot of Iowa players on the roster.
Yeah. I remember thinking of these last second or late come from behind wins. We had another good one at Missouri State that stands out to me. That was another game that we probably should not have won. I'm not sure how we did it, but we kind of kept it close and got some big buckets from people like Brian Jones down the stretch and obviously Cam. And I think I even had a tip in, believe it or not, off a free throw or something like that. And we ended up getting that win as well, too. Yeah. So that was the Missouri State Sugar Bears.
That might have been back in the Spoon Hour, maybe Hinson days. I don't know.
Probably, yeah. It had to be Spoon Hour, I was thinking. Yeah. Hinson was there for a while. Hinson coached at, 7 different schools in the Valley or something like that?
Yeah, he coached a lot of them.
Seems like he was in the Valley a long time. Yeah.
He was. So you would say Wichita State is your...
I would say Wichita State and then probably Missouri State and Southern Illinois. Yeah.
Your 3 favorite places to play. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Let's flip over to, you said Amaya, best player. Let's put it this way. Who is the player that you would put on the squad that was maybe not so well liked by the other fans? Who was being the most disliked or most hated back in either your team or in the Valley at the time you played?
The guy on our team that was most hated by everybody was a guy by the name of Greg Hammer, who was probably from North Central Iowa, who started at Iowa Central, I believe, and then transferred to UNI. And then also played 1 year of football because he had a year of eligibility left. This dude was probably 6'9" and 250 pounds and maybe 2% body fat. And he was willing to fight with anybody, whether the game was going on or after the game or before the game or on the hill after closing down the Stein or something like that. The coaches, I tell you what, if you ever get a chance to talk to Coach Lehman, ask him about Greg Hammer because their full-time job was keeping him out of jail. But he is the guy. He's the guy you wanted on your squad. He's the guy you wanted on your team because nothing happened if he was on the floor. And the other fans hated him. The other players hated him. And he was delightful to have as a teammate. He was a blast. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you talk a little bit about what you've been doing since you've been done playing. You talk about the family. What do you do for a living? Where do you live today?
Actually live in Marion, work in Cedar Rapids. I actually started as an intern with a company that was called Life Investors back in the 90s. So I graduated in 95 from UNI and had an internship, and that internship led to another thing, which led to another thing, which led to another thing. And now for the last 25 years, I've been an investment advisor here with a group that we work with. It's called Anderson Financial Services, and we're part of an independent broker dealer. And we've got great clients, and the business has been really good to us for a long time. So we're blessed there. My wife is a retired nurse. So she was, even when I was still at UNI, she was working here in Cedar Rapids, and she was a labor and delivery nurse delivering babies. She did that for a long time. Then she stayed home for a little bit when our kids were young. And then she was a school nurse at Marion for the last 16 years. In fact, she just had her last day today. So she's officially done, stepping into retirement as we speak right now. And we were talking about it last night. Her first day was Regan's first day of kindergarten. So cool. Regan started kindergarten and Danielle started working at Marion the exact same day. And they both, Danielle exited today, and Regan's got 1 more year of undergrad there at Grandview in Des Moines.
That's cool.
And then the other girls are in St. Louis and Chicago right now.
Yeah, congratulations to Danielle. I'll give her my best. One last question before we get into, because I forgot to ask this. Give me a fun story from UNI, maybe a fun coaching story. Scarich, Miller, Lehman, Boyle.
Yeah.
something fun that we can share with the listeners on the Deep in the Valley podcast?
I've never been really good at trying to imitate Coach Miller. I don't have the same voice like many others do. But I remember we had a Saturday morning practice, and it was in the middle of winter. It was during Christmas break where there were no students around. And it was one of those deals. We got home late the night before, and a few of the boys on the team decided to go out that night after getting home late. And we had about a 9 a.m. practice the next morning. And I happened, by the grace of God, I chose to go to bed that night. I don't know why, but I did. I wasn't part of that particular event. And I was in bed, and I made it a practice, and I was at practice early and shooting around. And we're getting ready to start. And there's probably 4 or 5 dudes that are not there yet. And they finally start rolling in about 10 minutes after practice started. And I thought he was going to lose his damn mind. This is one of the most mild mannered guys that you've been around. But I tell you what, when you piss him off, he lost his mind. And all I remember him saying is, get your goddamn asses out of bed in the morning. And that's something that has stuck with me forever. So every time the alarm clock goes off for me in the morning, I have his voice in the back of my head saying, get your goddamn ass out of bed. And it doesn't matter what time it is. It doesn't matter how much sleep I've gotten. And that's the one thing I've always remembered about him. And he's the type of guy that would call and check in with me when I was starting my career here in Cedar Rapids and when Danielle and I were newly married. But the nicest, most laid back guy. But don't piss him off. When you pissed him off, or if you were late, it did not go well. One of the other things I learned, and I've shared this a little bit with my daughter, Chloe, who's in the coaching business as well, too. I didn't realize this until after I was done playing. I was talking to him about something one night, and I was talking about how I used to feel like during timeouts, his personality would go like this a little bit with his voice. And he goes, all that was intentional. He goes, if I wanted you to calm down, if I wanted everybody to calm down, I would just lower my voice and just talk really slowly like this in a timeout. Because naturally what people do is they lean forward and really try to focus on what you're saying. And on the flip side is, he said, if you guys were out there being too soft and too slow, that's when I wanted to get after you into timeouts, and I would scream and holler and raise my voice and point my finger and that type of thing as well too. Those are the things, again, in the moment you don't realize it, but then afterwards, and he's explaining this stuff to me, I'm like, I specifically remember those situations of what it was like.
He's one of the all-time winningest college coaches.
Yeah.
And
the other, you had Scott on. I'm not sure if Scott mentioned this, but Scott, okay, so Scott and I have been business partners here for a long time. We've got more history because Scott and I went to the same high school, played for different coaches, went to different colleges, and played for the same coach.
Yep.
And usually when I tell people that, they have to sit down and really think about it. Scott played for Eldon Miller at Ohio State, and then Eldon got fired. After he got fired, he took him to win the NIT that season. So played the rest of the however many weeks or month and wins the NIT, and then comes to Cedar Falls and he's the coach.
So we'll jump in a last fun question. You're living in Marion, okay? Say I'm coming in to see a Walmart game this winter. I'm going to see the Wolves play whoever. Maybe Center Point Urbana. That's usually a very good girls matchup, has been in the past. Where should I go to eat?
Okay, everybody wants to go to Zoe's. Everybody knows Zoe's. Zoe's is some of the best pizza you can find in the Midwest, possibly even the country. Zoe's is right in the main square in Marion. It's very small. You're not going to be able to get in unless you go late after the game or something like that, because there's not a lot of room. There's not a lot of space, and you're going to sit and wait a long time for a pizza. It's really good, but that's what everybody thinks about. My favorite is a place called Emel's Hideaway. Everybody that's part of my family, my friend group, they know that's my go-to. Emel's Hideaway is a great spot if you want. They've got the coldest beer in town. They've got great homemade food, whatever you're looking for, whether it's sandwiches or burgers or pizzas, or a full-on bar, whatever you need. And they've got a late night happy hour. If you're in the area for a high school event, they've got a late night happy hour, which we took full advantage of while our kids were in high school.
That's great. I know what Danielle's go-to is there. Share your go-to. meal at Amels?
I get the classic double cheeseburger every time, but the key is you got to get the sweet potato fries with it. Classic double cheeseburger with the sweet potato fries. That's what we always get. Yep.
And has Danielle changed her pick, or what does she choose?
She does that, usually either the cheeseburger or that salad with the chicken on it as well. They also really like the taco pizza there as well, too.
That's a great place. It is hidden away, which is kind of cool. It actually
And
is,
technically, it might be a Cedar Rapids address. I'm not sure. So look it up and find it.
but it's pretty close. You can get to the gym very quickly from there. So, hey, it's been great having you on. I really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing the stories on high school and also with the Missouri Valley. And congrats on Danielle being her retirement day today. Congratulations to you guys. Do something fun this weekend. I'll see you soon, brother.
Keep up the good work.